You told yourself you weren't going to buy it. You put it back, you walked away, you even made it to the car, and then something happened. A thought, a feeling, maybe a small voice that said, just this once, and you went back in. Or maybe it was even simpler than that. You opened an app at midnight, and 30 seconds later, something was in your cart. You didn't plan it. You barely noticed you were doing it, and by the time you realized what was happening, it was already done. The confirmation email was already on its way. You've probably had this feeling before, that low-grade guilt that settles in somewhere between the purchase and the delivery. That vague, uncomfortable sense that this isn't what you meant to do. But here's what's strange. You know all the reasons not to spend. You've read the articles. You've made the budgets. You've told yourself more than once that you're going to change the pattern. And yet, the pattern continues. This is not a failure of information, and it is not a failure of character. The reason you keep spending when you don't mean to has almost nothing to do with who you are as a person. It has everything to do with how your brain is built, and how an enormous, sophisticated world has been designed at extraordinary expense to work with that brain against your long-term financial interests. Let's start at the beginning. Your brain doesn't make decisions the way you think it does. You don't sit down, weigh the pros and cons, calculate the long-term value, and arrive at a rational conclusion. Almost no one does. Almost ever. Daniel Kahneman, a psychologist who won the Nobel Prize in economics, spent decades proving this. In his research, he identified what he called System 1 and System 2 thinking. System 2 is the slow, deliberate, analytical part of your mind. It's the part that reads the fine print, compares prices, and asks whether you actually need something before buying it. System 1 is the fast, automatic, emotional part. It reacts before you have time to think. It decides before you know it's decided. And here's the part that changes everything. System 1 runs almost everything. It sees a price tag marked down from $120 to $60 and feels like a winner before you've asked whether you needed it in the first place. It hears limited time only and registers urgency before you've questioned whether the deadline is even real. It notices free shipping on orders over $50 and immediately starts thinking about what else to add to your cart, without pausing to ask whether spending more to save on shipping is actually saving anything at all. This is why you can intellectually understand every principle of personal finance and still walk out of a store having spent more than you planned. The knowledge enters through System 2, but the spending happens through System 1. And System 1 does not read budgeting articles. Now add to this something your brain does that almost nobody talks about openly: the dopamine loop. When you buy something, or even when you just consider buying something, your brain releases dopamine. Dopamine is often described as the pleasure chemical, but that description misses the most important part. Neuroscientists now understand that dopamine is more accurately the anticipation chemical. It fires in response to expected rewards, not received ones. This means that the act of browsing, scrolling, adding items to a cart, or even just opening a shopping app triggers a release of dopamine before you've spent a single dollar. By the time you actually check out, your brain has already received a large portion of the chemical reward. The purchase itself is almost secondary, and the moment the package arrives at your door, the dopamine level drops. The excitement fades faster than you expected. You look at the thing and feel a quiet emptiness. And then, without quite meaning to, the loop starts again. Retail has known this pattern for decades. Online shopping perfected it. There's a reason the checkout button is designed to be as frictionless as possible. There's a reason one-click purchasing was invented and fiercely protected as a patent. There's a reason apps send you push notifications about items you looked at once, 2 weeks ago, late at night when your resistance was lowest. Every piece of friction between you and the moment of purchase, every confirmation screen, every extra form field, every added step, has been deliberately identified and removed. The entire infrastructure of modern commerce is engineered to catch you during the dopamine window, that brief period when anticipation is at its peak and your capacity for long-term thinking is at its weakest. Dan Ariely, A behavioral economist who has studied irrational decision-making for most of his career documented another mechanism that makes all of this worse. He calls it the pain of paying. Spending money actually activates regions of the brain associated with physical discomfort. When you hand over cash, that pain signal fires more strongly. When you swipe a card, it fires a little less. When you tap a phone connected to a stored credit card, it barely registers at all. Early and other researchers found that the further payment is from physical cash, the less real the transaction feels to your brain. They call this payment decoupling. The experience of acquiring something becomes separated from the experience of losing money. You feel the pleasure of the product without fully feeling the cost of it. This is why spending $200 on dinner with a tap of your phone can feel almost weightless in the moment, while counting out $200 in cash from your wallet feels significant. The math is identical. Your brain does not experience it that way. But the architecture of the economic system around you adds another layer to this. Richard Thaler, who received the Nobel Prize in Economics in 2017 for his work in behavioral economics, identified something he called mental accounting. Your brain doesn't treat all money as interchangeable, even when it mathematically is. You maintain invisible mental categories, informal budgets that exist only inside your head. Money you earn regularly feels different from a bonus. Money you set aside for rent feels different from money sitting in your account labeled extra. Money that arrived unexpectedly, a tax refund, a gift, an inheritance, gets filed in a mental bucket called found money, and suddenly it feels less serious, less worth protecting, more available for spending. This is why unexpected income so rarely converts into lasting financial progress. It flows into a separate mental category, and the same instincts that protect your regular money don't apply to it. You weren't irresponsible. Your mental accounting system just treated that money differently from the moment it arrived. Now here's the part that most conversations about overspending never actually reach. The problem is not that you lack willpower. The problem is that you are living inside a system that was specifically engineered to bypass it. Subscriptions auto-renew at the exact moment you've stopped thinking about them. Free trials begin charging the day most people forget to cancel. Store layouts are not accidents. The essential products are placed at the back. The highest margin products are positioned at eye level, and you walk past hundreds of potential decisions just to reach the one you came for. Loyalty programs reward you for spending more. Flash sales manufacture urgency where none naturally exists. Bundle deals make it feel wasteful not to take the larger option. Countdown timers measure the seconds remaining until a price goes up. These are not random marketing choices. They are the outputs of decades of consumer psychology research applied at industrial scale by teams of people whose job is to understand your decision-making better than you understand it yourself. You are not weak. You are a normal human brain inside an environment that spent billions of dollars learning exactly how to outmaneuver you. Senthil Mullainathan at Harvard and Eldar Shafir at Princeton studied what they called the scarcity mindset. Their research found that when people experience financial pressure, when money feels genuinely tight, it doesn't just feel bad emotionally. It measurably reduces cognitive bandwidth. People under financial stress perform worse on tests of judgment, planning, and impulse control. Not because they are less intelligent or less capable, because mental resources are being consumed by the constant background noise of financial anxiety. And the deeply uncomfortable irony is that this cognitive drain makes the careful, long-term financial thinking that could improve the situation significantly harder to execute. Financial stress impairs the very thinking that would help you escape it. This is documented. This is measurable. And it is not a character flaw. So what does any of this mean for the decisions you actually make? The most useful shift is not about becoming stronger. It's about seeing the system clearly. When you catch yourself opening a shopping app because you're bored, or browsing as a form of comfort when you're stressed, or feeling that strange urgency about a sale that ends tonight, that is System 1 reaching for a dopamine loop. You can learn to watch it happen. Naming it doesn't always stop it, but it changes the relationship. You move from being swept along by the current to at least seeing the current for what it is. The second shift is environmental, not motivational. The purchases easiest to avoid are the ones you never have to consciously resist. Removing your saved credit card information adds 30 seconds of friction to every online purchase, and that 30 seconds is often enough for System 2 to catch up to System 1. Unsubscribing from promotional emails removes a trigger before it has a chance to fire. Deleting shopping apps from your most used screen does not require you to be strong in the moment. It requires one deliberate structural decision made once instead of hundreds of willpower-dependent ones made every single day. And there is one more thing worth sitting with. Research in behavioral economics consistently shows that people relate to their future self the way they relate to a stranger. Brain imaging studies have found that when people imagine their lives 10 years from now, the neural patterns resemble thinking about an unfamiliar person more than thinking about themselves. The money you spend today doesn't feel, in any emotional sense, like it's being taken from your future self. It feels like it's being spent by you, right now, on yourself. That's because to your brain, your future self is someone you haven't met yet. Their problems feel distant, abstract, less urgent than the very real, very present pull in front of you. One way to hold this is with a simple question, not a judgment, just a direction check. When you look at where your money actually went last month, not where you planned for it to go, but where it actually went, does that map match where you want your life to go? Not where you think you should want it to go. Not what a budget template says is correct. Where you, with your actual values and your actual goals and your actual future, want it to go. You told yourself you weren't going to buy it. You walked away. You went back. You weren't being careless. You weren't failing. You were a human brain doing exactly